This is Robert Kraft, and I'm your host for the SNN Network virtual conference. I'd like to thank you all for joining us for this panel here today. The panel that you're about to hear, it's the ASX-listed companies with operations in the United States. Just a quick background on why we wanted to host a panel like this. From my years now of hosting my podcast, the new show, the Investors Roundtable, we've really been talking a lot more about how there's more accessibility to global investing. And one of those places that has been gaining a lot of traction and being seen as a place to potentially go and look at has been Australia. And over the years, I've interviewed quite a few Australian portfolio managers, people that cover Australia specifically, and there's quite an active microcap community down there. So we really wanted to highlight a little bit more about this topic specifically, and really wanted to showcase companies that are listed on Australia but have some sort of operations in the US, because I know a lot of you who are watching right now sometimes like to go and check out operations. So this is an easier way to go and see what some of these companies are up to. So I'd like to very quickly introduce our panel. Our moderator today is Mark Tobin from Coffee MicroCaps. We have Wayne Arthur from Skyfi. The company Skyfi will be presenting on Wednesday, August 5th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. We have Stephen Snowdy from Visioneering Technologies. They will be presenting on Tuesday, August 4th at 10 a.m. Eastern. Bruce Coombes from Quickfee. He will be presenting. Actually, he just presented when you're watching this. So you can go and watch the archive version of Quickfee's presentation. That was on Monday at August 3rd at 3 p.m. Eastern. And then Dr. Ralph Heinem from Volpara Health Solutions. He will be presenting on Thursday, August 6th at 3 p.m. Eastern. And finally, Warren Murphy from Carbonxt Group. He will be presenting on Wednesday, August 5th at 9 a.m. Eastern. So with that, I'd like to throw it to our moderator, Mark Tobin from Coffee MicroCaps. Mark, take it away.
Thank you, Bobby. Yes, I'm Mark Tobin. I'm the moderator for today's panel. So I run Coffee MicroCaps, which is a media and events platform for ASX microcap companies. I tend to focus on industrial microcaps, so that would be things outside of the junior mining and junior resources space, and I kind of picked these 5 companies today for Bobby's event to kind of showcase the depth and I think the quality that's within the ASX microcap universe. We've got companies here in financial services, healthcare, technology, industrial products. So it's quite a broad mix of sectors. Just to give you an idea of where these companies sit and the ASX microcap universe for some of the US investors who maybe not be familiar, or I find a lot of US investors tend to think of Australia a bit like Canada, big country, not many people, very focused on mining. In terms of the 2 stock exchanges, the ASX, the 15th largest exchange in the world, so a cap of about $1.3 trillion versus Canada, which is about $2 trillion. The ASX is one board, which is different to Canada again and the US, where you've got TSX and TSXV. TSXV is about 3,300 shares. Australia's got about 2,200, and about 1,700 of that 2,200 are what US investors would ascribe to being a microcap company, i.e. under $300 million market cap US or 430 million Australian. In terms of the makeup of the microcap kind of sector index, it's about 30% in that junior resources energy space. If you look at the TSXV, that's 60% between junior mining and energy. So it's a much more broader universe of shares and sectors. And in terms of, the ASX microcap index, how is it done compared to some of the peers? It's actually the best performing microcap sector in the last 5 years. You know, it's returned 8% per annum. I mean, if we compare that to global microcaps have done 3.5, US has done 2.7, UK has done 0.9, the TSXV has done minus 1.6. That's up as a June 30. So, you know, if you're looking for alpha, if you're looking for returns, I think the ASX microcap universe is definitely a place to be doing some groundwork. I'm just going to go around to the 5 presenters here today. They're going to give us a quick snapshot of what their business does and where their US operations fits in. First, I'll hand over to Bruce Coombes, the CEO of Quickfee. Bruce.
Thanks, Mark. Very quickly, great to be here. Quickfee is, you can think of it as buy now, pay later for professional services. So a B2B version of Afterpay. And the reason we're in the States is because we're the only company in the entire United States providing our solutions. So it's been a great opportunity for us.
I think I'll hand to Dr. Stephen Snowdy then from Visioneering. Stephen.
Hey, Stephen Snowdy, CEO of Visioneering. Visioneering Technologies is a US-based medical device company. We sell contact lenses. 2 primary patient populations. One are nearsighted children, which is 80 to 90% of kids in Asia. And the other are people over the age of 40 who are losing the ability to see up close. So if you're looking at your computer screen and saying, well, I got to send this thing back to Apple because it's getting blurry, it may just be you.
And then I'd like to go to Wayne Arthur, CEO of Skyfi. Wayne.
Wayne Arthur, CEO of Skyfi. We're a location-based analytics platform. What that means is we're capturing data from a variety of sources: cameras, beacons, Wi-Fi networks, RFID tags, anything that emanates a location event. And we're helping businesses to use that data to understand things like occupancy, visitor flow, dwell time, those kinds of metrics, which under the current COVID situations, been a very interesting space to play in, given the restrictions on occupancy numbers and thresholds around the number of people in spaces. So yeah, we're enjoying a decent time. The US is, again, it's a massive opportunity for us. We're probably one of 3 companies out here that's doing similar things, and currently the US makes up about 20% of our revenues.
I just want to mention that Wayne's actually based in San Francisco and Stephen's based in Georgia. Next, I'd like to hand over to Dr. Ralph Heinem, the CEO and co-founder of Volpara Health Technologies. Ralph.
Thank you, Mark. And yeah, I'm based actually in Wellington in New Zealand. So that's the view of Wellington behind you on a nice sunny day. We're a company focused on trying to use AI for the early detection of breast cancer. 500,000 women a year die of this around the world. 40,000 of those are in the US. We cover at the moment around 25% of all US breast cancer screenings use our software. So the US is a major part of what we do on a day-by-day basis. And we have staff across the US, including a sizable office up in Seattle as well. So obviously the US very important to us.
Thank you. And finally, Warren Murphy, Managing Director of Carbonxt Group. Warren.
Hi there. We're a pollution control company, predominantly producing activated carbon in 2 sources of powder and pellets. Pellets being a very significant growth interest for us currently. We're based in Gainesville, home of the University of Florida, where we've traditionally hired most of our staff from. Our business is 100% currently in the US, and the reason for that is contrary to many people's views, the US actually leads in environmental legislation, and the key aspects of that, key tailwinds, was mercury and toxic standards legislation to capture mercury from coal-fired power stations, and we developed what we believe is world best technology for that.
Okay, thank you. And then I might go a bit deeper into each one of the companies here now. So I think I'll quickly go back where I started to to Bruce. And Bruce, why did Quickfee choose the US? I guess as its first market outside of Australia. Most ASX companies would, drift across the Tasman to where Ralph is in New Zealand, or a lot of Australian companies, move up into Asia. Why did you guys decide to tackle the US as kind of your first market away from your home market?
Absolutely. We've certainly got nothing against Wellington. It's a beautiful city, Ralph. No doubt at all about that. But the United States have got a slightly larger population than New Zealand. The United States is the largest consumer of professional services in the world, and we're a finance company and a payment gateway for professional services firms, primarily accountants and lawyers. To put that bit of context there, the professional services market in the United States is 1.2 trillion, of which 450 billion is just accountants and lawyers, which is our primary service sector.
Okay, great. And then Wayne, maybe I know you guys are in a lot of different sites. Can you give us a kind of an idea of where people would find your software operating? Is it shopping centers? Is it sports stadiums? Is it large government buildings? Is it all of the above? Give a sense of where somebody might interact with your software, even unknowingly.
Sure. So it is all of the above. I mean, the opportunity is absolutely every physical public environment you can name, from the ones you mentioned to hospitals, university campuses, K through 12 schools. Smart cities are becoming big sort of users of the product today. I guess the history of the business focused mainly on, or initially on, retail, should I say? So shopping centers, large department stores, down to restaurants and cafes were probably the largest part of our portfolio up until 18 months ago. And then more recently, even in the last 4 or 5 months, we've started to see supermarket chains, university campuses, as I mentioned, and smart cities become much bigger consumers of the data, just given what's happened really, and their need to understand things like occupancy and conversion, and take action from that data. So any physical environment really is relevant, but the growth at the moment coming out of education, hospitality, and grocery.
Right. And then Warren, I know you said you're kind of based down in Florida, but your two production facilities are elsewhere in the US. Can you just give us an overview of, I guess, what's done at each one, and how the different products are made at each one?
Okay. So our research facility is based in Gainesville, Florida, and our manufacturing, powdered activated carbon, is manufactured in Georgia, and the pellet facility is manufactured in Minnesota. So the rationale for that, two reasons. One, transport is a very key part of the cost structure for our product getting to the end customer. In many cases, we have to pick up transport costs. So a distributed model is a better model for operating in the business and improving our gross margins. And the pellet plant was really built to serve a key customer. And from that, we entered that market and then built from there. So we are looking at additional pellet capacity, and we may put that at the existing site, or we may put that in Georgia. We just, indeed, we might look elsewhere. It really depends on the needs of our customers and trying to reduce that transport impost.
Thanks. If I can just go to Ralph now quickly. Ralph, I know you've done a recent partnership with Ambry Genetics over in the US. I mean, what does this mean for Volpara, I guess, on a standalone basis itself, but also as part of kind of the wider Volpara ecosystem of products that radiologists are using on a daily basis?
Yeah, Mark, there's about 8,700 breast imaging sites spread across the US, and we cover up 25% of those today. Our aim is to provide a complete suite of AI tools to those breast imaging sites, ranging from computer-aided detection to breast density to patient workflow tracking, and optimization. The one thing we've been missing in that package, and there's a rising interest in the US in particular, is to do risk assessment, i.e. what probability that you're going to develop cancer, and if you are at high risk, then should you go on and get a genetics test. So yeah, we partnered with Ambry recently to start offering genetics testing to the clinics that we serve, and that comes with the advantage that we can make the whole workflow incredibly smooth all the way through to that testing. So that'll expand our reach and it'll increase our ARPU, which is the price that we can get per woman at those sites.
Great. And then finally coming to Stephen, I mean, as a US company, you know, why did you land on listing on the ASX as opposed to, you know, listing either in the US or maybe even on the TSXV up in Canada?
Well, Mark, as you know, the coffee and the surf in Australia are just absolutely fantastic. Not the reason we went to ASX though. So back in 2016, we were a medical device company with an FDA clearance, research and development mostly behind us, and getting ready to do a sales and marketing launch in the United States. And we were introduced to Canaccord Genuity out of Australia. They were actually in the United States looking for opportunities that were just like us. They were looking for medical device companies that were US based, R&D pretty much completed, regulatory approval in hand, and looking to raise money for which the use of proceeds would be sales and marketing instead of research and development. And it was just a very neat fit. We happened to be looking for money at the time, and Canaccord was over here looking for companies just like us to take over to Australia. We ended up raising a pre-IPO 2016 and IPO 2017. So it's really just a really neat fit between what we were and what some Australian investors were looking for.
Great, yeah, fortuitous timing. Happens a lot in life and in business. Bruce, if I can come back to you, if we can just look at the Australian, I guess, market in terms of, you know, structural differences between what you guys find between the Australian professional services market and the US professional services market.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. When we went to the States 4 years ago and set up in LA, we were totally surprised by the amount of paper that actually turned up every day, thanks to the US Postal Service. The US professional B2B sort of market definitely uses more paper than we're used to in say, Australia. So we're actually building out a tool right now, which is actually going to eliminate the use of paper for delivery of invoices, statements, reminders, and those sort of things that professional services firms are sending out. And to give you a bit of an idea on that, this is one of the slides from the presentation earlier today. Like 3/4 of invoices are sent electronically by 85% of professional services firms in Australia, and the ratio in the US is almost the opposite. So it's a great opportunity to bring a great tool integrated with our payment platform to professional services in the States.
And will the new invoicing tool, will that create a new revenue line, or is it like a new bells and whistle feature that, I guess, hooks people in onto to the core payment product?
Yeah, a bit of both, Mark. We our revenue right now is interest, which is charged on our payment plans. So when somebody goes and sees an accountant or a lawyer, we will pay their invoice for them, and then the client pays us back over a 12-month, typically 12-month period, and we earn interest on that. We also earn income off our payment gateway, where we provide ACH services with very rapid settlement to professional services firms in the States. We put that in context. Right now, we do about 500 million a year in transaction values, and that doubled during COVID. And thirdly, this new tool is actually like a SaaS solution. So not only will it build a moat around our customers and give them another reason to join us, it actually represents a third revenue stream for us as well.
Okay, great. When I know you're based in San Francisco, as I said, very big in Australia, expanding in the US, but you're also in quite other, I think it's 30 countries now globally. I guess with COVID, is the plan to continue expanding the country footprint, or has COVID led to a refocus of building out, the 30 kind of international markets you're already operating in?
Yeah, it's a flattery comment, I think, to say we're in 30 countries. We operate very, very lean teams, mainly as support for the resellers that we work through. So our main go-to-market outside of Australia is actually through partnerships, and we work with the likes of Hewlett-Packard and Deloitte and Cisco and these larger businesses that have got companies and offices and teams in all these markets. So really, it's on a deal by deal basis. It doesn't. It's a software product, so we don't require infrastructure to be deployed. We don't necessarily require office space in each of these countries to operate. So yeah, we will be led essentially by the deals. Really, all of the data that we gather is stored in cloud servers, and again, those are present in pretty much every market. Really, China is the only market that we'd probably stay away from just because of the sovereignty around data collection and so on, but and maybe some other reasons. But look, outside of that, it's really, it just comes down to what the opportunity looks like. I think we do have large partnerships and opportunities that are unlocking in the UAE at the moment. That's definitely a focus for us, probably as a next move. But outside of that, it's really putting the foot down in the US.
Okay. Warren, I know you mentioned the you've got the activated carbon and the pellets product, but you're actually kind of reinventing the pellets product as we speak. Can you give us a kind of a sense of what that entails and kind of what the new version of the pellets is going to mean for I guess revenues and functionality?
Yeah, I think rather than being a reinvention, it's a completely different pellet for nutrient removal. So Florida has a very significant nutrient runoff issue where significant phosphorus, nitrogen is seen in a lot of the waterways, and they've recently passed legislation to see that removed. And so we've developed a product for that we just won a Department of Energy prize for. We've got 3 test sites going on at the moment in sequential pathway where it's not so much about making the product work as determining the vessel in which we deliver that product. So it's more a mechanical engineering solution rather than the typical chemistry solution we have. That's probably understating a little bit, but we have a great deal of confidence in what our pellet is actually performing. If we go back to the other pellets that we currently do, though, I don't want to give the impression that we're deserting that field. Quite the opposite. We've actually just signed 2 significant contracts in that area and growing rapidly, and those will be to capture hydrogen sulfide and also in applications in wastewater. And we're still continuing on our own path outside those contracts for a variety of other volatile components that we can capture from the air and water phase. So very, very significant growth for us and a very exciting time. And to add that application in phosphate is a great achievement, and it's a very, very big market, more than $1 billion addressable market. So if we can crack it, we think we'll be the only ones in there for a time. But I'm sure that competition will always eventuate. But very exciting area for us to move into.
And the legislation is passed now, but when do wastewater treatment plants need to comply with it? Is it from next year or 2022?
I think it is 22 actually, Mark. I need to check exactly, but I think it's a couple of years phase-in.
Phase-in, okay, great. Ralph, I know you said you're to 27%, I think now, of the US market. I guess, you know, how much growth is in there? Is it possible for Volpara to be 100%, or is there always going to be a competitor that I guess has some portion of the market, and you have the other portion of the market?
Yeah, so Mark, we cover 27% of the US market, and by that we mean one of our products is used on the women, 27% of the women that attend screening each year. We have 5 or 6 products, so we have a huge kind of upsell opportunity into those existing sites. And obviously in this COVID world, that's exactly what we're focusing on at the moment. In terms of overall market share though, if you look at the X-ray world, for example, companies like Hologic up in Boston, who actually make the hardware, have a very strong position, 70-80% or so of the US market. So it certainly is very possible to go on from where we are to much greater penetration across the US market. Of course, you are always going to get that 5-10% of people that will never change or never do something new, but the rest is there, and it's all fair game.
Great. And then Stephen, I know you've probably been deploying that capital you raised in the IPO. I mean, how has growth gone in terms of Visioneering's sales revenues since the listing?
Well, it's interesting I guess we could think of it in terms of what we were 2016 versus the year that we closed out for 2019. 2016, before the IPO, we were a US only company. I think we had about $200,000 in revenue in 2016. 2019, we're in 9 countries, $6 million in revenue. So quite a bit of growth over those intervening years, and a really big focus on expanding our international regulatory footprint ahead of expanding our international market. So in those intervening years, we got clearance in the European Union for myopia progression control in children. What that is simply is, you know, these nearsighted kids who start wearing glasses when they're just 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. They get worse and worse over time, and it's that progression that creates the long-term problems for their vision. So it's very important to stop that progression. And so in Europe, our products, our contact lenses, were cleared in 2017 for slowing or stopping the progression or worsening of nearsightedness in children. We got Australia, we got New Zealand, we got Hong Kong registration, we got Singapore registration, just recently announced Canadian approval. And in all of those places, we're either signing up sales and distribution partners, or in a case of Canada, we're launching ourselves. So from 2016, $200,000 US-based company only, to 2019, we closed out $6 million in revenue and are now going on sale around the world. So I would say made good use of the money, and we're on a path of growth here.
I can attest to kids with glasses in Singapore. I actually lived in Singapore for a while, and I remember remarking to my wife one day, going down an escalator, there was a whole bunch of school kids coming up the other side, and actually the kid with no glasses was actually probably the odd one out. It's crazy when you come from a place, you know, like I'm from Ireland originally, or you come from Australia or New Zealand, to see so many kids with glasses compared to, you know, if a group of school kids passed you on the street in Australia or Ireland. It was definitely noticeable.
It's amazing. In Australia, you have one of the lowest rates of nearsightedness in children in the world. It's around 12%, but that's double what it was just a couple decades ago. In the US, it's a quarter to a third. And most of the Asian countries, it's 80 to 90%. China and Singapore have actually declared nearsightedness in children to be an epidemic, and are very aggressively pursuing solutions for this. Because what happens to these kids is that the worse they get in their nearsightedness, the more at risk they are when they're adults for going blind, getting glaucoma, getting cataracts, other serious ocular events. And so it's very important to intervene with them as early as possible. And when it's 80 to 90% of your kids as a country, you're going to have a really big economic problem when these kids grow up and start having these ocular events.
I think the forecasting out of you've got a near-term problem that also can turn into a big long-term problem as well. Bruce, I just want to come back to you. One of the things that's always struck me in your results in your presentation since listing is the low level of bad debts for a financial services company. Maybe you can just give us some insight into, I guess, how you're managing the book so tightly that it is such a low number.
Yeah, look, absolutely, Mark. Right at the start, I sort of described Quickfee as sort of equivalent to like an afterpay for professional services in a B2B sense. The big difference between us and basically most of the other financial services companies is that when the client takes a payment plan from Quickfee to pay their professional service provider, the professional service provider has provided to Quickfee an indemnity in relation to any unpaid principal. So essentially, when the firm issues an invoice, we'll pay it 100 cents on the dollar at no cost to the firm. The client will then pay us back with a little bit of interest on top. But should the client enter, say, bankruptcy or be dissatisfied with their service provider, then the service provider has to make us whole on the unpaid principal. So for us to actually suffer a bad debt, the service provider themselves has to go under. To give you an idea, our largest client in Australia is KPMG. So these are pretty solid professional services firms. That's why the bad debts are so low.
Okay. And I think if I remember from your last presentation, I don't know if it changed from today's one, but I think it's like $60,000 or something like that since you started. Is that right?
Yeah, it's absolutely tiny, and well under like 0.5% sort of thing of our total lending in history. And our experience in the States is very similar to what we've had in Australia. So we're very fortunate to have quality firms that we deal with, and as a result, very, very low bad debts.
Okay. Wayne, if I can just come back to you. I know you said you were, working with a lot of different partners like Hewlett-Packard and Deloitte and stuff, but I guess who are your kind of main competitors in this space? Are they doing all of what you do, or do they compete with you in kind of parts of what you do?
Yeah, it's definitely more of a part competition landscape for us. We are, and we're trying to be as current with the data as we possibly can, but we are the only company at the moment in our space that's capturing the range of data sources that we can currently collect. So what I mean by that is, think of an airport, for example, where there's a camera surveillance system, there'll be a people counting solution, there'll be a Wi-Fi network, various forms of thermal imaging sensors for the security wait times and so on. We are one platform that can sit over the top of all of those different solutions, for example. So, we've kind of done away with the need to have multiple platforms to view data. And we spent the early part of our R&D process making sure we could, work with and are compatible with the variety of different vendors that manufacture those solutions. So, long-winded way of saying no one's doing all of it together like we are, that we're aware of. But there are companies that are doing parts of that. So there are companies that are doing analytics and automated marketing around just Wi-Fi data, and there's probably 3 companies globally that do that. So it's not a big competitor set. There are a larger group of companies that are doing pure people counting, using 2D and 3D and thermal imaging sensors. So there's a much bigger competitor set there, but they're all, sort of single channel operators, if that makes any sense. Whereas we're kind of residing over the top of all of that. We've stayed clear of the hardware game. So again, we're not beholden to any single device manufacturer or camera type or Wi-Fi access point. So again, we're kind of applicable in any environment as a result. So yeah, the upside is significant. As I mentioned, the ability for us to scale really is down to those partnerships that we can unlock in those countries. The relevance is definitely there, and the market size is definitely there. yeah, the competitor group is a little bit piecemeal, and it's one of the reasons we've chosen to stay agnostic of hardware type, if that makes sense.
Great. Warren, if I can come back to you, I know you're making some changes across kind of the production process to remove some kind of third-party suppliers to you guys. Can you just maybe talk about why you're doing that, and I guess what's going to happen in terms of margins because of that, or lead times in terms of getting products to customers as a result of this process change?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things when you have such a major event as COVID, it does get you to focus very much on your own business and where you sit. And initially, we felt that we had very little effect on us. Our clients, utility style customers, a bit like Bruce's clients, they pay regularly and well. That wasn't an issue for us, and we weren't therefore focused that much on the revenue side. But what we found was that the supply chain was disrupted more than we had anticipated. We were dealing with US-based companies, but ultimately we found that they were importing from Asia, and those supply chains were affected. So we did what we always do, which is we take advantage of our heavy R&D capacity, and we said, how do we fix this? And how do we improve our working capital cycle and improve our gross margins? And that's what we're heavily focused on at the moment. We've just done some initial trials in developing a kiln product. Nothing particularly unusual about that, but how we're going about it and what we're doing with it is different. So to cut a long story short, we feel that we'll dramatically improve our gross margins. We'll completely eliminate any dependence on third parties, and we'll be able to deliver our product with a lot more certainty and a lot speedier delivery process. So it's total win everywhere for us.
And the timeline for that to be completed, is it by the end of this year or early next year?
We feel that we'll have a commercialized product by the second quarter of the financial year, which in our case means the December quarter, and but really start seeing the significant drops in cost structures probably in the second half of the year.
Great. Ralph, I know if I can come back to you, I know you guys had I won't say a fundamental change, or maybe it is in the sales model towards the end of 2019. Maybe you could just talk to that change and kind of what it's going to mean in terms of revenues and margins, moving forward as more and more customers come online under the new kind of sales structure.
Yep. So traditionally, medical devices has been a capital sale followed by small service and maintenance contracts. In December, Mark, we moved to SaaS, software as a service, across all our product lines. So if someone doesn't pay us, the software turns off. It's been a really good change, I think, for us as a company, for us, for customers. We end up with more money, but the customers find us much more attentive to their needs, because obviously, we want them to renew contracts each year. Change was very fortuitous for us because obviously coming into COVID, if you're on a capital sales model, I think people are getting hit, but if you've got a recurring sales model, almost all our customers have renewed and continue to renew quite strongly, and they're all paying the bills. So yeah, we're very happy. It was a very good timing on that switch to complete SaaS, Mark.
And can I just does this apply to when previous customers come up for renewal, they're going to move to the SaaS model, or is it just the new customers that are kind of have signed up since November?
Yep, no, it's all the new ones. Plus, we are going through the install base now, trying to convert them over. and we've been pretty successful at doing that. But again, when you do that, you need to give people compelling reasons to upgrade. So we've got a whole wave of new products coming down now, which really gives them that compelling reason.
Okay. Stephen, I know you said you know, you were a completely US kind of focused company at the IPO, and you're operating in 9 countries, and you listed off a few of them there. Can you maybe just talk a bit more about that expansion, and I guess where's the kind of most exciting market outside of the US for you right now?
Well, certainly in Asia, you know, as you noticed on the escalator in Singapore, for nearsightedness in children, Asia is the big market. If you look at Singapore, Hong Kong together, you know, those are a couple of $100 million markets, which for medical devices is a respectable market. But if you look at China, we estimate to be about a $10 billion market for nearsightedness in children. So that's a huge one. We still haven't gone into Japan or Korea. Those would be additional opportunities for us. We're not yet in other parts of Southeast Asia, like Malaysia, Indonesia. So there's still lots of room for growth in Asia. China is probably the most difficult one of those, the most time consuming from a business perspective, the most complex. China usually requires for any medical products that you redo clinical trials. So we would have to do some work in China to be able to sell our products there. And we'll have to invest in that market a little bit more, which we'll likely do through a partnership of sorts. Because of the complexity of the market there, from the clinical trials all the way to distribution and fulfillment, you know, those are things that Western companies tend to not be very successful at doing on their own. So we're looking for partners in China to help us do those things. But plenty of growth left in front of us in the Asian markets. And like I said, for the past couple of years, we've been focused on getting the clearances necessary in many of these markets. Now it's time to go back and start doing some harvesting. So you'll see us much more focused on developing the sales and marketing relationship. An example of that, just yesterday, we announced our partnership with a company called Oculus. It's a contact lens company headquartered in Singapore, been around for 30 years. And they'll be doing our sales, marketing, fulfillment for Singapore and Hong Kong. Outside the United States, that's very typical for us. We'll use sales and distribution partners. Inside the United States, we have our own sales force and use distribution systems here that are third party, but our own sales force to sell the product. But outside the United States, where you'll start seeing us start to go here in the very near future, is more of these sales, marketing, distribution relationships with partners to help sell our products. The advantage of doing it that way is that we don't have to expend the capital necessary to build sales forces in each different country.
And the EU, I know you've got regulatory clearance there. Would that be on a per country basis, or would you, look for a bigger partner that can kind of service, the whole, whatever, 27 nations inside there?
Yeah, glad you asked. So late last year, we signed a deal with a company called Menicon. Menicon is a contact lens company. They're out of Japan. They're Japan's oldest and largest contact lens company. They are a multinational contact lens company. Around the world, they sell just under $1 billion of contact lens products each year. Late last year, we signed a deal with them where they will do sales, distribution, and fulfillment of our product in Europe under their own name. Menicon is a company that has been exploring nearsightedness in children for a very long time. They were probably one of the first companies out there to recognize the market opportunity and to start developing solutions for these children. They launched last year, they launched a brand that's just myopia. It's called Bloom. They launched one product under the Bloom portfolio, and they approached us and said, can you be the other product in our Bloom portfolio? So they have a product called Bloom Night that they've just started launching in Europe, and we will be a product that's they'll take our contact lenses, we'll put our lenses in a box with their name. It's called Bloom Day, and they will launch the product all throughout Europe under that name. That product was supposed to be launched by Menacon in the March quarter. Due to COVID-19, the logistical and economic challenges that the pandemic has created, they'll be launching this quarter or the last quarter, calendar quarter of this year.
Right. Bruce, if I can come back to you. I know the US is now kind of half your business, and the other half is Australia. Are you looking to expand into any other big professional service markets, or move out tangentially, move across the border into Canada, or move across into New Zealand, or is it just literally all guns blazing on the US market, given the size?
Yeah. I mean, just the sheer size of the United States. I mean, it's for like every company on the call here is is basically a US company on the ASX. It's sort of the Australian businessman's dream to go to the United States and not lose your money. So for us, it's very, very exciting to be in such a large market. Just to put it in context, the California Society of CPAs, the California Society of CPAs is the largest professional services body in the world. So for us, that's our key market. It's pretty exciting to be in the States. I think if you're in the USA, it's not too big a leap to think we're going to move to Canada. But Europe is really just not on our roadmap at all. We've got an enormous opportunity in the States, and that's really where our focus is. And prof services is where nobody else is playing. So we're excited to be able to build something and service a market that doesn't have other buy now, pay later providers in it.
Right. Yeah, I think I read a stat recently. I'm not sure for what year it was, but this is for Bobby. Bobby, if California declared independence in the morning, it'd be the 6th largest economy in the world just on its own.
Yeah.
To just to give you an idea of how big California is in terms of the global GDP, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. I want to just quickly go back to Wayne. I know you mentioned it in your intro, Wayne. You've pivoted the product, or maybe I say adjusted it to customer needs is probably a better way of saying it, in relation to COVID. Can you just give us an overview of, I guess, some of the R&D and development that your team has had to kind of put in place for COVID functionality for your clients in the last kind of 2 months? I'm assuming it was a pretty hectic R&D schedule.
Yeah, look, I mean, the underlying kind of use cases of the product have always been around, understanding the flow of people and real-time visitor counts and real-time occupancy. And, you can think of the various permutations of that in each of these physical spaces. Say airports, it's about customer flow through TSA, which we all know in the US could use a lot of improvement. And in a lot of airports, for shopping centers, it's about, the impact of a change in tenancy mix or a new retail outlet or a new restaurant. So there's a number of different use cases that are still core to the platform. But what the COVID situation has done is bring all that really under the microscope and into context around, specifically occupancy. So we relaunched it was really just a marketing bundle. It wasn't a lot of development work per se. It was a little bit of tweaking on the front end of the tool, but all the back end, is all still the same. Where, we focused initially on the grocery and healthcare verticals, where those were still essential services, obviously, early March and still today. So they had a real problem or real issue, should I say, around making sure that they didn't reach occupancy thresholds in their stores. So, the average grocery outlet's 85 to 100 people in the store is kind of the maximum they're allowed at any moment. So we would count people going in and out. We'd provide a dashboard for the operator, but also a public-facing screen to say, look, it's a 5-minute wait to get back in, and we'd be able to provide that interface in real time. So simple application, but sort of negated the requirement for them to put labour out on the floor to count traffic and redeploy them back into the business. So we then launched a stream around facilitating contact tracing, which we can do through tracking MAC addresses on the mobile, which has been really, really powerful in all spaces, but actually universities, interestingly, and schools the most. And then the final one was just, through the camera network, ensuring that social distancing practices were being maintained in the stores and there weren't large gatherings of people and those kinds of things. So all of that was a reporting dashboard, which then had an alerting back end that could trigger an alert to a staff member or an operator in the business. And that's been really, really well received.
Great, thanks. Warren, if I can come to you again. I know all the kind of production facilities are in the US currently. You've got R&D down in Gainesville, but you're in Georgia and Minnesota.
Yeah.
Are you doing exports from the US, or would it kind of require a facility to be set up in another market in order to service that market, given you said, transport costs are a kind of a major component of the overall cost?
Yeah, so certainly in the powdered activated carbon area of our business, segment of our business, I think it's unlikely that we'll see exports. It's something that we would have to establish the technology in another market and either license, which is most likely, or look to build, which is much less likely. I think the better way to do that would be a license. To answer your original question, are we exporting at the moment? No. On the pellet side, we don't have as big an issue with transport. The product is more sold on an FOB basis. Some of our clients, we believe, are exporting our product. We're selling to distribution companies, and we're fairly certain that some of them are. So the answer to your question is, therefore, that inevitably we could export those products. A bit like Bruce, though, the size of the market in the US is so large for us relative to where we are currently that trying to spread our wings at this point in time really isn't a great use of the management time. I think we really need to focus on getting a bigger share if we can of what is a very large US market.
Okay, great. And then if I can maybe just quickly go to Ralph again. I mean, outside, it's a bit like, I guess, the question I've posed to others, outside of the US, Ralph, what's a more, I guess, an exciting market for you that's going to kind of move the needle over the next kind of 12, 24 months?
Yep. So, Mark, the US is about half the world market for breast cancer screening technology, but equally, right, hundreds of thousands of women outside the US die. So we are very much from day one a global company, and we do operate in around 39 countries now around the world. The big one we're looking for over the next year, though, is Australia and New Zealand. We've got lots of private centres down here, but we're really looking to crack the public sector. Those big public sort of population screening centres take a long time to change. But we were fortunate enough last year to have a 10-year randomised controlled trial coming out of the Netherlands, which published some fantastic results around catching really nasty cancers early, where they're far more treatable. And there's those kind of trials which really turn the heads of population screening programs around the world. And we're certainly going to be pushing on into those around the world this year. And we did announce in December our first population screening program signing up to our software. It was delayed going live, but is due to go live now over the next few months, as long as coronavirus stays out of the state in which it's based. So we'll see how that plays out.
And is it a combination of, I'm just going to say New South Wales Health here, they have to say, your product needs to be used as kind of a base level, care or screening thing, or is it an issue linked to funding, or is it a combination of both? Kind of, I guess, what has to fall into place for for these to kind of come into play for you?
Yep, and as usual around the world, at least in healthcare, there's two key things: proving that you can improve patient care, and then two, proving it's not going to increase costs and it's actually going to increase return on investment. So yeah, we have to find a champion, a clinical champion, convince them around the benefits, which we've got plenty of case studies now to show that. And then it's to put the budgetary packages together for that champion to go and win the battle with the funders at a higher level for those population-based screening programs.
Okay, great. And Stephen, I just wanted to talk, I mean, as you say, Singapore, 80%, Asia, generally very high cases of myopia. I mean, this isn't, something new that's, popped up in the last like 4 to 5 years. What's happening in the industry more broadly around myopia control, and where is Visioneering positioned within that in terms of, research, new products, who else is coming into the space from the larger end of town, J&J, for example?
So you're right. It's myopia, nearsightedness in children is certainly not new. It has exploded in prevalence over the last 20 to 30 years as children spend more and more time inside, less and less time outside, which correlates to the development of myopia. But just in the last couple of years, there's been very, very rapid growth of awareness around nearsightedness in children, rapid growth and awareness around the long-term consequences of nearsightedness in children as those kids get into adulthood. And it's taken a while. So 2 years ago, 3 years ago, everybody was aware of this issue, but nobody was really talking about it. Very few companies were trying to sell products in the space. But since then, the large contact lens companies, the large vision care companies have started getting much more involved in the area. J&J just announced an initiative. J&J Vision Care is the largest contact lens company in the world with regard to revenue. Just announced that they are going to start developing products in this area. Cooper Vision, which is one of the large 4 companies around the world in contact lenses, recently launched a product in the United States for nearsightedness in children. We are founding members of an organization called the Global Myopia Awareness Coalition, GMAC, where all of the large companies, and with Little Visioneering sitting next to them as a founding member, recognize the need and are now aggressively educating practitioners and parents on the importance of early intervention in nearsightedness in children. As I mentioned earlier, Menacon, one of the large contact lens companies, vision care companies around the world, just had a product approved over in Europe not too long after we did. And so what's happening now is a very rapid expansion of awareness, a very rapid expansion of research and development. And I think that bodes really well for us. And that swell of interest is part of the reason that we're seeing a lot of success right now.
Great. And then Bruce, if I can come back to you, I know your 2 main verticals right now are law and accountancy. Is there a plan to move into another vertical, into, I guess, professional medical services, or or professional engineering services maybe? I'm not sure. Or is it you're going to keep on with what you know best in law and accounting?
Yeah. Well, accounting will probably always dominate our business, because accounting is the only service provider that basically every SME needs. Two unavoidable things, death and taxes, and the accountants provide the second one, the taxes. So that market will always be the largest probably for us. More SMEs use an accountant than the other provider. We do have engineering businesses which use the solution. We've also got marketing agencies and recruiters that use the solution. So we're open to any service provider that's in professional services that's B2B, and provided they meet that. So, for example, medical is not something that we would currently look at. There's products like Care Credit out there in the market, well established, doing that sort of B2C. But for B2B professional services, more than happy to look at any other vertical.
Okay. And the recruitment ones, is that, how does that work? Because I would have thought that was B2C.
Typically a recruiter is paid by the employer that is looking to recruit somebody. So an employer looking to headhunt somebody with your talents, for example, Mark, would be paying the recruitment company to seek you out, and we would fund that.
Okay. Tell them if they wave a big check in my face, I'll consider anything. When I just wanted to come back to you quickly on what are you looking at in terms of kind of new products in the next, or new functionality in the next 12 months to kind of, I guess, more embed yourself in with your customers? Is there anything exciting that you've got in the pipeline?
Yeah, there is. We're conscious that our best deployments are in the physical space. So being more integrated into the operations of things like building management systems, HVAC, air conditioning, lighting, anything that drives efficiency around energy and the operations of that space, we think is a good direction for us. There's still a lot of growth, we think, in the people counting, video analytics space as well. So there's some work being done in those 3 areas at the moment. So we've been pretty clear about our intention to grow. Organic growth rate's been strong, 50-60% year on year for the last 5 years. But we're also very cognizant of acquisitions that can help to fast track that. So we're certainly looking at companies in those areas that I described for potential acquisition as well.
And then I think maybe just one final question back to Stephen, if I could. Warren talked about the disruptions in his supply chain, even being a kind of a wholly focused US company. Did you guys encounter any kind of COVID-related supply chain manufacturing disruptions?
We've been very lucky so far. So our contact lenses are made by a large OEM in Taiwan. Taiwan has been quite successful at managing their COVID-19 outbreak. Ships are still floating, airplanes are still flying. Viruses haven't affected those. So we've been very lucky to not see supply chain disruptions. In the United States, things slowed down a little bit with regard to fulfillment, but have since resolved themselves, picked back up. We are very fortunate that our products are available for shipment directly to the patient from warehouses. It's one of the few medical devices that does not require that the patient go into a clinic and in order to get their medical device. So we can ship directly to the patient and haven't seen too many problems. And certainly whatever slowness we saw at the beginning of the pandemic have resolved themselves. So knock on wood, so far, no supply chain disruptions for us, manufacturing disruptions or fulfillment disruptions.
Great, thank you. On that note, I think we can wrap up the panel. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us on the panel today. I hope it goes some way to illuminating your individual presentations throughout Bobby's conference. Bruce has done his, and everybody else is going to be coming up over the next couple of days. I'd especially like to thank Ralph from Volpara and Wayne from Skyfi, who've presented at my own conference over in Australia, the Coffee MicroCaps conference. So thanks for your kind of ongoing support of my initiatives around ASX industrial microcap companies. And yeah, I hope we gave everyone a kind of a flavor of what's in the ASX microcap universe. Let's start with Ralph. Do you want to give your contact details?
Yep, it's volparasolutions.com, Mark.
Okay, and Wayne, if we go to you next.
Yeah, sure. It's Skyfi, SKYFII.com.
And Stephen, can we go to you?
Absolutely. You can learn quite a bit about us, about nearsightedness in children, and about the adult loss of near vision over the age of 45 at www.vtivision.com.
I love branded workwear. It's the best. And Bruce, Quickfee.
Yep. To know all about it, there is a link to the ASX from the site as well. Go to quickfee.com. That's QUICKFEE.com.
And that's for US customers as well. There's no difference between a US and Australian design.
There's a link to the Australian site. It's quickfee.com.au for the Australians.
Okay, great. And finally, Warren, Carbonxt.
Yeah, Carbonxt, www.carbonxt.com. So carbonxt.com.
Okay, great. Thank you. Bobby, I think that's about it from us, unless there's anything else.
Yeah, Mark, where can they find you?
They can find me. Probably the best place to find me is on Twitter. My Twitter handle is CMicroCaps. That's capital C for Charlie, MicroCaps. Or they can find me at www.coffeemicrocaps.com.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us today. I really do appreciate it. And I look forward to speaking with you all individually and doing CEO interviews. So thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you.
Just to confirm, I am not a shareholder of any of the companies participating on this panel today.